Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday evening with the Clear Mountain Monastery community. This evening, we're very happy to have Venerable Maechee Paññāsirī with us. Venerable, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Ajahn.
So I'll just read a quick bio of the Venerable. So Sister Paññāsirī is a Chinese-born Thai Forest Maechee in the tradition of Venerable Ajahn Chah. Born in 1967, she grew up in Shanghai, China. Sister has worked many years as a writer, creative director, a teacher of yoga, pranayama, and meditation, as well as traveling the world with a deep spiritual pursuit, which she was born with. Finally, this lifelong inner quest turned her into the path of the Dhamma. In 2018, she became a student of Venerable Ajahn Jayasāro and started the training in various forest monasteries in Thailand as an 8-precept Upāsikā. In 2020, she became a Maechee with Venerable Ajahn Jayasāro as her preceptor and was instructed to go on almsround and not to receive or use money. Sister Maechee Paññāsirī currently remains in a nun's hermitage near the Khao Yai mountain in Thailand and teaches via Zoom with our Clear Mountaineers on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of each month. And people can find out more about that on our Discord server. So, Sister, thanks again for joining us. We first met you, I think, well, I met you maybe in 2018 or something at a retreat with Ajahn Jayasāro, but we first heard teachings from you when we brought our group of Clear Mountaineers there a few years ago. And maybe just one general question to ask is, what is a Maechee exactly? And how did you come to that form specifically?
In general, to me, that Maechee is just like for women who dedicate their life to the practice, and then meaning like, aiming on striving their life for the end of suffering. Any female.
Okay. And how about your path into the form, and specifically the version of the form which you currently live, where you don't touch money and go on almsround?
I found that's really fun. The two major fun part of my practice will be that not touching money. I had to admit that it was a bit weird to start because I'm not so much about, you wanting things, because when you really ordain as a Maechee, for me, it's like just letting go of everything. And then the first thing is the worldly pleasure, and then the comforts, and convenience. And I was very happy to let go of that. But then you realize that I think once that, because people don't really know that much about this new tradition that Chanajam teacher instructed us to. The most Maechee, as you know, that in Thailand, they do keep money and they don't go pinaba. So it was just like the new generation of this practice in Thailand. But I realized that sometimes, I would even have like a kit of sewing kit, and I couldn't buy it myself. So, but it didn't take me long to realize this liberation about not having money. And then you started to really contemplate, and how can I possibly and to live like a samana through our own practice, and to let go of more things, while the society not really acknowledge that. So, and also going pinaba barefoot, and for me it's like always, I think it's always still today, that's the highlight of the day for me. And that and there's so much to learn and so much to remind ourselves, this short journey, and then about 40 minutes in the morning. And I don't get that much food because most of the donors and the villagers, and they do sometimes cook, but with meat. And being a Montessori and being a vegetarian, and I hardly don't. But you realize it's not about going for the food. And at the beginning, I remember the first 3 weeks when we first go pinaba. It was so difficult for me. I was just in tears all the time, and I even returned to my kuti. I was in tears. I couldn't even taking the food down, because I just thought to myself, what made me worthy of this offering from people that, because their house is just behind them, and they live in such like a basic life, But they got up so early in the morning, then providing us all this hot food and hot rice, and then what made me worthy of doing that. So I was very happy that to let go of everything. You know, if anything that more than money I can let go of, I'm very happy to let go of that. Yeah.
So in Thailand, the Maechee form is very common. So someone growing up in Thailand would see Maechees, these white-robed female renunciates, all over the place. I've heard that there are between 200 and 300,000 monks in Thailand at different times of the year, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was at least that many, if not more, Maechees. But growing up in China, did you have any examples of renunciates or monastics, either male or female?
No, I think, you know, my path is a bit different than most people. I started very late, and prior to that, I had, you know, the time that you met me at the during the English retreat. That was my very first encounter with Dhamma. But I had to say I was very fortunate. I met the teacher, and I've always been like looking and waiting for all my life, and maybe like, you know, previous lifetimes, and then waiting for the right teacher. I met a lot of teachers and on a different path. But when I met Ajahn Jayasāro, it was clearly for me that, you know, he was the one that is just like a living example of the Dhamma. That's something I didn't even know, had any idea. And I remember when I attended this very first retreat, I keep telling everybody, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Buddhist. You know, I never wanted to be like ist. But then you realize that you see this person, this human being who has all these qualities that you wish to develop, and you were just interested and curious about the training code behind such human being, and you would like to wish to develop. So he was like my an inspiration for starting the Dhamma practice. And then of course there's a lot of other things that cause and condition happen, but I think Ajahn Jayasāro was the major essential like condition for that. But prior to that, I realized when I keep telling people that I was not into Buddhism, I started to correct myself. I was saying that, you know, I was just not really inspired by certain form of these teachings being practiced. I was not be able to. I was not able, or I didn't have this, you know, good merit to meet with them practitioners that who can really inspire me, and not to mention that, you know, bring me to the path. But I was thinking it's just the right time. You know, everything occurred, and for me to put on the robe and to live a holy life, which is something people call it sudden, but I didn't see this like a sudden event. It's just cause and condition happen. I've been like waiting for this like almost like for many lifetimes, not only this life. And when I first went to Banana Chat, this is how I felt.
It strikes me that faith had to carry you a long way, Maechee. You've spoken about how for women the practice can be harder. And I know before you encountered your current situation at the hermitage, you lived for quite a while in monasteries where you had to be cooking in the kitchen alongside practice, where, you know, you confronted a certain disparity in the culture. And how did you work with that? And how did you make it part of your practice? How did you make it, you know, how did you flourish through those years?
First of all, I think it's very important when we make a commitment, and then the intention behind the commitment, and then also the sincerity behind the commitment. I mean, like the faith also, and of course behind all the Cetana, the commitment. I had this very unshakable faith in the very beginning. It was just a bit odd for me that how can I be so faithful and have this unshakable faith on something that I didn't even know that time, or put it this way, I didn't know that well. But my faith was unshakable, and I think, you know, I had a lot of examples, like, you know, Ajahn Jaya being like the teacher, as he's one of the main resources at the beginning, and then for the Dhamma practice, and also when I started in the monastery. Yeah, you're right. Maybe people don't believe it, but when I started to live in a monastery, it seems very more complicated than my life, you know, as a lay woman. And the time I spent in kitchen, and then dealing with people, and then we lived very closely. And then it was very challenging for me, like we're almost having like, you know, a very intimate relationship, and with all the strangers. And then not to mention that everyone's level of commitment to this practice, the training, varies, enormously. But I would say, like, if you wanted me to choose working in the kitchen or meditating in the sala, no question, I would choose working in the kitchen, because it trained me so much. That the commitment is not, when you go to the monastery, you don't commit to like, a Theravada. You don't commit to, one particular monastery. You don't even, commit to the community, but you have to be fully commit to your commitment. So my commitment, very simple. I have to work on myself. I know that, I've been through different passes, and this comes to the point. I realize there's something within myself need to be done. I don't know what it is. I need a teacher to tell me. I need the training to train me, to crack me, sense of self. I later on find out. So how can possibly be better place than in the kitchen, and through yourself with a group of people you don't know and with different even values. It's just wonderful. Like Nombo Charles taught us that just stick to your commitment and then watch the mind closely. What's arising? I'm sure that you have much more things to arise in the kitchen. Particularly like you being a vegetarian and cook in the kitchen. That's you have all the meat and the food and the fish and all the flavors I haven't had for so many years, and it just like coming to you. And then the ayatana, that you have to be mindful all the time, otherwise you won't survive.
Venerable, you talk about, sticking to your commitment, but you had a choice to which form you committed yourself to. And I'm curious, you speak multiple languages, and oftentimes, someone who's not born in a Buddhist country and kind of comes across Buddhism, especially whether male or female, sometimes people will shop around. Like, do I want to be a monk in this country, or do I want to be a novice? Or for you, there are even more in terms of Theravada female forms. And I'm curious how you're so committed to the form that you're in, and how did that come to be that you felt so comfortable in this form?
I didn't feel comfortable at all, but I just work on that. I adapted to it. I realized it's so important that I didn't know anything about the Meechee form. I didn't know anything about Theravada, but I said was the main reason for me to come to Thailand, because I want to follow Ajahn Jayasāro as my teacher, and he is in the Theravada tradition, and also the reason I'm still here, because I just the first few years, and there's so many difficult times and moments for me, but I said to myself, I'm going to stay put with this form and in this tradition for at least 5 years. But I think it turned out like after like the first 2 to 3 years, things just started, like I started to see the silver lining of the gray cloud, and then and from that moment it just stayed in this way. I managed to see the order and the silver lining each piece of, and there's no gray cloud anymore. And then just know that the gray cloud is just like Brahman's our projection, and then when you like wipe out all the expectations and your Dhamma fantasy, and you just live the way whatever like things present to you, and adapt yourself into any situation, and then turning any garbage into compost, and then you will just be so fortunate that everything that Dhamma brought to us is something that made us to see, and then just reflected the commitment at the very beginning. We could have forget about this, right? Sometimes when things get too difficult. I just said to him, what brought you? These few moments, I said, okay, I can run away. I just need to get a ticket. I can run away. And this is still comfortable life back there. Everywhere I can still do whatever I've been doing. But then I said to him, yeah, but the things remain within yourself will be fermented. I can share with you, like, and one example, that when I first arrived Wapanana Cha, and I had no idea about what's the forest tradition like, what monastery like, and how this life is. So I came in, but I always liked the unknown. Like I was never afraid of unknown, and then this concept has been unknown. There's always something kind of like I feel enthusiastic. So, and when I arrived in the Wat Pah Nanachat, the first night I remember, and I was in the sala and waiting for the monks, the Sangha, to be in position on the platform. And when they started the first note of the chanting, my tears just keep shedding. I cannot stop it. And it was so embarrassing because the snot also came out and I couldn't stop. I was on the first, it just like flashed into my mind. I look at this Sangha and I just said to myself with a firm and very quiet sound, what have you done? What have you done to yourself to be ending in this position? You should be sitting over there. You should be sitting over there. What have you done? What have you forgot? So for me, like, this practice and either be a Meechee, be whatever form, is not that important to me. Because it's like everything in life, it comes in a parcel. You cannot get to choose and pick. I follow that teacher, and he happened to be the great monk in this tradition. And I wanted to have like a full-time training, and Meechee seems the only thing that available at that time. So I just pick whatever it came to me. It's also, I think, my cause and condition that for this to happen. And I know that a lot of people and has been heavily criticizing on this and tradition, and also I'm sure that quite many also left, and particularly people from outside of this country. And it's not easy, but I would say that it's such an interesting, because there's a lot of uncertainty.
Mm.
And because of this uncertainty, you have to get hold on the teaching even stronger, firmer, to not be taken away by this ambiguity. And then, when you live in a community, and how you can really like flow into with the harmony, but without say sacrificing your level of commitment. But instead of saying I'm better, I'm special, and you have to keep this practicing, this training more internal, like publicly privately watch your mental state again. So it was very difficult. It was just like pulling the tree, and a big tree. I came here like just everything's been uprooted, and had to learn everything from. But it was exciting for me. Like even the bitterness tastes very sweet to me. It was not while you're tasting it, but the aftertaste was very sweet. I just think, and I didn't wish anything to be different than this. Everything's teaching me and show one button that's been well hidden within me.
So, sister, I'm curious, when you said I should be sitting there, why am I not sitting there? Did you mean just in a renunciant form, or as a monk, or what did you mean by that?
Yeah, as like a full-time practitioner, like being a monastic, not like a man. I was just like, I think what have you done? It's kind of I slipped. I slipped into the lay life, but I realized, at the beginning, I just thought, how could I not even sense this transformation? Because I almost like sense any other transformations prior to that. You can feel something's happening, but this, like being in a Meechee or in holy life, there's nothing ever like this that would occur in my mind. But then I realized. It's also cause and effect. It's never too late. It was not too late for me. I had to get things done in the lay life. Karmas need to be cleared, and lessons need to be learned, and a lot of things need to be done, and then a lot of responsibilities. So it was never too late. But the way that I said, every step counts. When you have a really a long preparation, and when you get to the path, then I feel every moment for me is very precious. I cannot wait. I don't want to wait. I don't want to waste my time into any other things.
What would you say to many of our listeners who are laity, but also I think have had that moment of remembering, like, what did I forget? And really orienting towards the Dhamma very clearly, and wanting to align their lives with Dhamma, but they don't have the option to ordain or become a Meechee or go to Thailand. How would you advise them to keep their life on track in a way that's worthy of this path?
I mean, like, even someone like me, like we stay I'm staying in Thailand, the Buddhist country, and remain in the, kind of like the Meechee form or order. There's nothing like called ideal or perfect. I still have to build a monastery within the monastery. So this is something I tell to everybody, like it's not about the form. Form is important, but to build your own monastery. Every human being should have a mobile monastery. Excuse me. And then by introducing the teaching that they can keep and they can follow for the time being. So you really build up the personal monastery brick by brick by following this, the Sila Samadhi Panya training, the same training, because Lord Buddha offered one training to the lay and the monastics and women and men too. So there's no like separate and teaching. It's just a matter of the intensity, and then how much time and energy that you wish to invest into that, and in a way that how you prioritize your life. And then, if you keep like I said, well, for lay people, if you can periodically or even like for full time keep the 8 precepts, that's a big move. You've already cut down all these temptations, and for women particularly. And then there's a lot of like fuss we made on our looks and presentations, everything that, it can be really put to the side. And so you can really unsave a lot of precious energy. But very important, you have to see the importance of the Dhamma, then you will really go for it. So this monastery, I mean, like, it's really about sincerity and how you see your life, how you're going to prioritize your time. And you can keep the precepts, like the 8 precepts. You don't need to tell people, I'm keeping precepts and make it awkward. Like, it's not important you be a Buddhist. It's more important how you practice this. Like the Dhamma quality is the human quality. You don't need to become a Buddhist to practice all these qualities, right? You can still keep the precepts without, claim yourself being a Buddhist. I've had a lot of lay friends who never claim themselves be a Buddhist. They may not even aware that they're keeping the precepts, but they are doing that. So everybody, can do the same thing.
Sister, one of the nice things about talking with you, whether it's here live like this or even just in a phone call, I mean, your sincerity and your just striving is really impressive. I mean, in one of our previous phone calls, I think the 3 of us, I was actually taking notes because it was like, I was like hearing a Dhamma talk the whole time. And something I think you said during that call is that if you ever find difficulty, that's something in yourself. And that's a pretty extreme statement, I think, for most people. I think it's very much in line with Dhamma, but I'm curious if you could say more about that, because it's I think that would be hard for many people to hear or to accept. Or
I keep telling people, I think, people always calling me like, oh, how can you be so strong? I mean, I don't believe that, I mean, I don't see myself, but I think probably it's difficult. Of course, the first few years, it was extremely difficult. I mean, like coming to Thailand and living life in this way has been the most difficult and the most difficult in my life and in all aspects. There are countless, I should say, if you want me to go through some details. And if you ever want me to name one, I would say probably that for someone who's born with like a spiritual, very strong spiritual pursuit, I think, those kind of people, and I'm not alone, of course, and would agree with me that the inspiration from your spiritual companion and are very vital, right, for this type of mind. And then I would say probably it's the lacking of inspiration for me that to come, despite of course other things and come, but for me that this is something. Then I realized that why I suffer so much, because I want something in my way, and then I realized that when you had all these difficulties and you want to find a way out, and you know that all these difficulties, and they only pointed one cause, is the wanting mind within myself. And so I realized the drawback of, even I call it Dhamma fantasy. I had a lot of Dhamma fantasies when I first came to. I thought, wow, I'm in robes, I can even fulfill all this, and I had this long list of even the way, like how I relate to the teacher, how he's supposed to train me, and how I deal with all the the other the fellow Mechees and other people, and a lot of things. But soon you have to tear off the list and then live to the present, and then the moment then we let go of all the expectations, and then you have to wipe it. Whenever the mind you started rising a bubble about something I just cut it off. I cut it off, and I learned to live without. And now it becomes this learning to live without becomes such a joy for me than a challenge. But it's like I said, every time when you really encountered with difficulties, whatever it is, and most important for me is drop off the grasping on right and wrong. I think cultural shock is the first thing that I drop. There's no such thing called a cultural shock. If anybody said, "Oh, okay, it's a cultural shock," it is great for someone who came from a different country. This is like general, not about the Chinese to Thai or a Thai to the American. It's just like when we come to a new country, and it's very important for us to observe and to let go whatever we expected or a life we have been living, and then really open your eyes wide and to see everything, and without being judgmental. And some of the weird things, but what do you mean by weird? And not even I look at a psychopath, because so many times I feel like I'm turning into a psychopath. I'm not. I'm very pretty of that. But the divine minds tell us, if you go one step further, you're going to become a psychopath or you're going to die. We heard so many inner threaten, but just ignore that. It's the same thing that we come here and then we hold on the list and expectations, and even for good things, and then the sooner you let go of this, the better. So everything that happened to me, and day and night, you may not believe that it's so many nights I stay on my porch and in tears and in the darkness and cry and cry. I didn't know whether I would be able to continue. But it's very interesting that my faith to Dhamma has been unshakable from day one till today. I only had doubt about myself. And that I was not sure that whether I can go through all these difficulties. I never ever believed I would, but the Dhamma that it came to me, it was not my decision. Dhamma came to me in such a big wave that I cannot even think about anything else. Running away, going back is certainly not an option, but going forth. And I know that if I ever find any other distraction or any escape from what I've been suffering, or all these troubles and worries and difficulties, that they will only get one chance to keep fermenting within myself. And I came to the path to crack the sense of self. If anything that has been there and it's not cracked, and I would like to give my life to crack it. Even I have to die with it, I will go for it. Because I cannot see any value of a life to live with all this unfinished thing and bring it to the next life.
Sister, it's inspiring just to hear you talk in this way. And we want to encourage people to type in any questions they have in the chat. We'll have a chance. On that note of cracking open the self, you've said that enlightenment is a universal experience. What do you mean by that? It's a good quote.
Well, the things that I don't remember most of the things I said, and then it always makes me nervous when people say, "You said that." Well, yeah, but I remember that because I said it twice. This is in a context when people said, "Oh, you people are very selfish, and then you're just running away from all the duties and then living like a parasite or something." And then also there's a lot of criticizing on the Theravada, thinking you people only care about your personal practice and then not, for all the living sentient beings. And then from that context, I would say, no, I said, enlightenment is not a personal event. Enlightenment is a universal event. Because the one who are enlightened at that moment, they have to let go themselves. And so it's like you use one individual, you use this very limited life to experiment the potential for all the human being, and then being a living example, just like, what I learned from my teacher, being a living example, and just a quite silent living example of Dhamma. And this great teaching that shows that the majority of the human don't even turn their head and look within. Like Ajahn Chah said, well, there may 99% of the human being in the world that don't even know what kilesa is, the defilement is. So if you think about it this way, isn't it wonderful that there's a small group of human beings and then finding a way out, not for themselves, but using them as a guinea pig, to finding this possibility for the whole race. Unfortunately, this race, majority of that whole race is creating so much trouble for the planet and for ourselves and the other people. And there is a way out. And then you were like, this is like a no man's road, and you have to really give yourself to that. And you don't know when you will work through or not, but within this life, you're going to do it. And if it's not this life, next lifetime. You just have to keep continue doing that. And only when you work the way through and you reach the dry land and you can come back, tell people. Because before that moment happens, you never know what's lying in front of you, ahead of you. So when you really finish all the experiments, you can proudly turn back and say, yes, this is working. Lord Buddha, we are verifying this great gift for all the human beings on this planet.
Sister, you talk about letting go of Dhamma fantasies, which I think is a really great phrase, like how we think we might relate to a teacher or what a community is going to look like. But one of the inspiring things about these conversations with you is that you don't let go of the highest ideal, the complete ending of suffering that maybe even in this very life. And so how do you discern what is a Dhamma fantasy and what is a Dhamma possibility? Like in America, many lay Dhamma circles, there's not really a true transcendence of greed, anger, and delusion. Nibbana, that's not really a possibility. We can just learn how to manage our anger and our greed a little bit, but that's a Dhamma fantasy, to think that you can completely transcend suffering and greed, anger, and delusion. So how do you discern what's a fantasy and what's a Dhamma reality?
Well, Dhamma fantasy is basically based on, the Tanha. Just simple as that. Anything. It's like you're grasping anything related to the Dhamma achievement. Or like we can even thinking that they are essential or conducive for the enlightenment, but you grasp on that. Like I think Ajahn Jayasāro also give a nice simile, and he said, it's like grasping on bad thing or grasping on good thing or like noble things are the same grasping. It's like a snake, we're gonna bite you sooner or later. And maybe it's more dangerous that if we grasp on some like noble things and good things, and without realizing the danger of that, then this is more dangerous. So the Dhamma fantasy would it be like we have like expectations, like I addressed before, like inspiration and how a certain way that we wish the teacher train us, a certain way we wish our Dhamma companion that to live, and then live up to their commitment, and then a certain fantasy of expectation of how the what should be, and then the lay people and all those things, and how we can even like something like how much harder we can even invest the time into certain like meditation training, all of this. And if there's a wanting, there's a Dhamma fantasy. And even like and I have this desire for going Tudong. I know that very well because as a Meechee, we don't have this opportunity like monk and to go Tudong or live in a cave. So I thought to myself, like have this fantasy of, ascetic training. I don't have all these opportunities. And then so I started to contemplate what's the quality that behind Tudong and then the cave living. and then one should are supposed to develop, and then so you just develop this quality. I develop all these qualities in the kitchen, like in the cooking by myself, in many by even dealing with people, and then you can even practice the noble silence when you're in a big group. Like every morning when I had to work in the kitchen with all these noises, and never in my life I experienced so many noises. And so yeah, you really watch your mind, and then finding this inner silence and stay with it. So and then but this but nibbana is what's the result. The nibbana is the result of letting go of everything. It's not somewhere you can reach. It's the result of you letting go of everything. You relinquish of everything. So it's totally like two opposite extreme. Even though that sometimes Dhamma fantasy can be seen as like something that is essential to Nibbana, and it's not. It's a delusion. It's the biggest delusion, I think, for anyone with a very strong spiritual pursuit. And we can fall into this trap easily.
Sister, on the note of discerning what is Dhammic fantasy and what is wholesome aspiration, letting go versus, or I suppose accumulating versus letting go, just mapping that on with a question from the chat to the holy life. Two related questions, actually. The first is, Dear Venerable, do you aspire ever to be a nun? And I think she probably means bhikkhuni in this case. And then a follow-up is, hello, Meechee, how does one know if they are suitable for the holy life? What if faith is strong, but there's a fear of failing? And my sense is those are two big enough of questions that you should probably approach one at a time, but maybe with the first, do you ever aspire to be a bhikkhuni?
Me? Well, I come to this point that I thought about that before, and then a few times seriously. And when I found out that it was very difficult then to find something which is very solid in a current Meechee, I don't know whether I should call it order or not. In this Meechee approach, I did seriously consider about this for few times. But as I said, well, and it is my karma, and also then one major reason I'm still here, that I made a vow to follow my teacher, and if he didn't send me away, that will remain here, and at least for the first 5 initial pansas, and then to complete this training. So, but now I think it comes to the point, and then I have this inner form. That's I said before. I built up my. I'm building up my own monastery around me, which I introduce, and then would encourage everybody try to even start to consider doing so. Like like Clear Mountain, you have this wonderful online monastery and community, which is wonderful. I think sometimes it's even better than the physical monastery. That it provided so much freedom to the practice. So I myself, and I didn't have this clear wish now, but I'm not sure in the future. Because it's all my name. I'm not sure in the future that if ever this possibility arrive, that but I think I will wisely consider that possibility if ever it comes to me as and switch on the phone. But now I'm very happy because I can benefit so much about introducing a lot of things which is not existed in the form itself. And then this inner refuge is very clear, and that you just refer to the Lord Buddha's teaching, and then firmly, and then brick by brick building our own monastery.
I think some people don't realize how you speak of introducing something new, and this elevated Meechee form really is a new and kind of powerful introduction into the scene in Thailand. So I think there's a gift in embodying that.
By elevated form, you mean Meechee with not touching money and going on almsround, which is
adding the two
is pretty unique actually in Thailand. As far as I know, I could be mistaken. But.
Yeah, you're right. But I was very fortunate. I think that was Ajahn Chah's invention, and his intention to support the Meechee. in a way that is not causing too much disturbance. But I believe that, and it's not about so much about what form we go, because it's never like a perfect form in the world, and you can always find something if you like, with a judgmental mind. It's all about how you can really make the best of the form itself. And being a Meechee, and the challenge, and Ajahn Kovilo asked me like earlier that the most difficult thing, but I was thinking, I would so appreciate the most difficulties, because I learned so much from that. It's everything coming like just to jigsaw something that I need to let go. Till this rock was rigid. It's like starts getting very smooth, and then when you get done once, and you have this confidence, you're very familiar with the taste. When the water comes into you, and you know how, okay, here comes the work. You just rub your hand up. Okay, I'm gonna see what button's gonna be reviewed.
And I think that ties in really well with this other question about how does one know if one's suitable to practice a holy life in whatever form, and if one's faith is strong, but if there's also a fear of failing.
You don't know before it arrives. You only know that when it comes, and then the moment that it comes, that you know that it is right. But prior to that, I think the only thing we're sure that we can prepare ourselves. You set up a goal, like I said, with spiritual pursuit. I don't like suddenly become a Meechee. It's something that really tune in what I've been looking for in my life. I just need to do something prior to that. But while I'm still waiting for what you call the perfect moment and event to arrive, I just prepare myself. There's certain things in life, I think, no matter what you wish to be, either become like a monastery or anything, anybody, any role that you think is valuable for you to become in this life. I think it's some general principles. It's like we should be very sincere of what we're doing, and then just enjoy doing it without worrying too much about what we can get out of this. So if you keep this like a way of living, and you will actually open yourself to any possibility, and you don't really like expect things, but you will just keep this kind of attitude to anything, and then when things come into you like this, it was not my choice. It was not my decision to become a Meechee or to live a holy life. And so when it came to me, and you keep like being sincere with this very moment. So when this almost like awkward thing coming to me, and I just receive it without any resistance. I cannot, of course, going forth is the only option, as I said. But that's the long preparation. My attitude to life didn't change completely after I became a Meechee. But the way I chose to live my life in the priority are totally different, because there's some fundamental change, is that with the Dhamma we have the Eightfold Path, right? So like we have the right deity. I realized I didn't have the right deity,
right view,
to begin with all the other, the right view. So I was like on a different spiritual path before for many decades. And I feel like a similar is like I was like a soccer player, and practicing all the skills without knowing where the goal is. But I was very good with this, different kind of skill, because I met a lot of teachers, and I've been, exposed to different paths, and they taught me periodically, many great things, and then to also help me to see partially myself. And so when I met a teacher, and he showed me the path, and not only that, I see the result of the practice within this human being, and it's inevitable. Like he become like the source of my the faith to this practice. Not so much I have faith on this person, but I have a faith on the way that he lives. He committed to that. So it was just like when we have this right view, when someone pointed at this, and you put all the the skills that we're practicing together. So I don't think I wasted my time or waited for long. It was never too late. So instead of saying when can I know what, I would say just know the present moment is more important.
Thank you, sister. And I think we're coming to the end of our time, but I wanted to finish with one question, which we kind of, I think, wraps things up in a quite beautiful way. Dear Meechee, much gratitude for your dedication to the Dhamma. You mentioned that you followed your teacher. What Buddha's teachings that you first got attracted to? And maybe just also if there's any kind of teaching which really has continued to resonate through these years in your heart.
Sorry, can you say it again? I didn't really quite get
What was
that
the first teaching of the Buddhas that attracted you? And is there a teaching that's kind of continued to resonate with you through these years in your heart that you could share?
So many. So many. I mean, like you cannot singulate Lord Buddha's teaching, because the greatest part of this great teaching is it's combined. It's a combination. It's like Eightfold Paths, the Four Noble Truths. We have numbers, so many numbers in Buddhism. It has to come practice one unit. I cannot think about anything, because they all like equally, they play like important roles, and then respectively and during different period of time, but they all like equally like important to me. Yeah, they only when they become one unit, you will feel the force of that. Before that and prior to that, and it's like ekagata. Only when the mind is single pointed, and they have the strength to pierce through and then to see the truth. The same thing. You cannot rely on one thing. You cannot rely on jhana or something. It has to be like the five faculty. Everything is number. I cannot, but I think for if you ever want to say something about the teach is the Four Noble Truths. The Lord Buddha pointed out that the reason that we suffer because of we don't see the truth, that everything is anicca, dukkha, anatta. I cannot think about anything more stronger, powerful than the Four Noble Truths. And we can practice it in every present moment in our life.
Sister, thank you so much for joining us. We hope it won't be the last. This was kind of an introduction, letting everybody get to know you, and maybe in a future discussion that we have with you, we might go more specifically into certain details, but we definitely encourage people to join those sessions with you, those Zoom sessions. You can learn more about that on our Discord channel. The second Thursday of every month in the evening is open to anyone that learns about it. Both, yeah. And then the fourth Thursday is just for women, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Currently, yes, it is.
Currently, yeah.
And just to say, we the first time we saw you with our community was when we were on pilgrimage, and I just remember walking into the sala where you were talking to them, and people came away quite on fire with Dhamma. And I think each conversation we have with you really does leave with that flavor. And just thank you for your sincerity and embodying it with such a sincere way. It's a good reminder for all of us, and we're very happy that you've begun to join this community and share your wisdom with all of us. So
yeah, I was very grateful. I mean, before we cut off, I think I just want to express my deep gratitude to the Clear Mountain community, and then the two of you. And then it's the first time I have a conversation with monastics, except for I had a conversation with Ajahn, but it was just a wonderful experience, and it was just so much joy that to be able to speak with the fellow practitioners, and even for me to call you fellow practitioners, and then to offer me this opportunity to get to know this beautiful and very sincere Buddhist community. And it was wonderful, and I can never say no to anything that from Clear Mountain. I cannot. Even if the money one, I cannot say no. It's very difficult for me to say no, to turn away. And then I learned so much from, thank you so much for having me and then giving me this opportunity to speak to people.
And you will join, you are coming over with us on Zoom as well. So if
Yes.
people are joining in live, you can meet Meechee over there. So.
All right. Well, we posted the link into the chat for the Zoom session, so people can feel free to click on it there, and we'll get more of a chance to speak with Meechee after this. So, Sister Anna Motana for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me.